So we've already talked about two different types of tissue already. We've talked about connective tissue and we've talked about epithelial tissue. And with connective tissue, I broke it up into different parts, but those were two different types of tissue. If we continue on, we will be talking about muscle and neural, and that's what this part will be. Muscle tissue is elongated cell. It's a cell that can respond to stimuli and can contract. So basically like a rubber band, it stays sort of elongated, and then when you hit it with energy, it'll pull on each other and shrink, and that'll give it that stretching and pulling process that it does. It exerts physical forces on other tissues and bones to help move them, produces body heat. All of your heat comes from a lot of the cells that you have, and muscle is one of the things that contribute the most heat. And then, of course, the three types of muscle that we're going to talk about is skeletal, cardiac, and smooth. Skeletal. Number one, you could see if you look at this picture, is you can see all these little lines in them, and they're designed to stretch and pull. So this is it relaxed, and if they were to stretch, you'd see that these lines would get further apart. You'll notice that there's a few nuclei here, and they're designed to tell these cells what to do, and it's either to stretch or contract. So this skeletal muscle is going to be long. They're going to be unbranched, which means they go only from point A to point B. They don't branch out like you'll see with the cardiac muscle. And they're striated. Striated are these little lines that are everywhere. You're going to see this word pop up quite a bit because this one's going to be the only one that's voluntary. Voluntary means that you decide when to move them. You decide when to have facial expressions and postures and breathing and to talk and swallow and excrete and move your arm and leg. These are all going to be things that you voluntarily do. So skeletal muscle is stuff your brain controls to do whatever you need. Cardiac muscle. So when we looked at smooth muscle, it went from point A to point B and it was pretty straight. It was, it didn't really have these little branchings. Where here, you can see with cardiac, because it goes in so many different directions, some will go here, and then some will branch off over here, some will branch around things, and these are short branches of cells. They're still striated with those little lines that you could see. And these are involuntary. If you had to think about moving your heart all the time, of course, when you fall asleep, you'd die because you'd forget to pump your heart. And your heart pumps so fast in a minute that if you had to think about moving your heart, you'd forget a second or two here, and then eventually you'd have major issues. The heart has these things called intercostal discs. You can see them right over here and right over here, and they hold cells tightly together because these are cells that move rapidly, and communication happens so quickly that if they didn't have these really tight junction points, the heart would actually tear itself, and if that happened, you wouldn't be able to move blood as efficiently from point A to point B. Smooth muscle. These are shorter. They're not striated where we saw all those lines and those small things. We're seeing small cells coming together. They're all going in different directions if they have to, but you could see that they each have a cell. Here's the nuclei. Here's the cell itself. They're not striated. They're involuntary, which means they move on their own. The substances that move through these hollow organs can kind of go from one side to the other. And these are going to be things that are going to surround organs and give them support. So we'll see them around our iris. We'll see them around hair follicles at the end of our hair to help move them. Like if you get cold, your hair stands up on end. Or if something's walking by you, your hair stands up to kind of tell you something's close. Stomach for churning food. Sphincters, you actually have 5 sphincters from start to finish, and they're all involuntary, and they allow foods to go from one section, like of your small intestines, to your large intestines, or from your stomach to your small intestines. And then you have, for uterus and labor, we could keep going and say things like inside arteries, they surround arteries to give them a little push and that tension they need. And then let's continue on and finish off with the nervous tissue. This is going to include the brain, spine, and nerves. With these ones, I'm going to keep sort of short and sweet because we have a whole unit on muscles and we have a whole unit on bones and a whole unit on nerves. So we'll cover them more in depth later. The nervous system consists of nervous cells called neurons, support cells called neuroganglia, and they protect and assist neurons. They help them with energy and they help feed them and keep them going. The location is going to be the brain, spinal cord, and nerve endings that go all the way to your foot, all the way to your toes. Function is for communication and control of bodily functions. When you even have your hair stand on end, that's going to be a process of nerves bringing in information for your head.